Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Today we're going to take a look at the brand new Walthers HO scale double crossover. This is something that has been out of production for several years now, and Walthers just got them back into country. They're fresh off the boat from China, so let's go ahead and get started. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. Thanks now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this down here on the workbench and move the camera down so that we can take a close-up look at the new double crossover. We'll take it out of the package and give it a once-over. I have one of these installed on the Piedmont Southern already, and in a few minutes I'll give you a look at that and how it's installed and wired and operated, the whole 9 yards, so that you can get an idea of how you would go about installing one of these on your layout. But let's go ahead and pop the package open and take a look at these. And like I said, these are a brand new product out of Walthers, but they're a third generation product. Basically, Walthers has been producing or selling double crossovers under their name from Shinohara for many years. And originally that was a DC compatible design. And then finally they came out a number of years ago with a DCC compatible version of that Shinohara turnout. Then a few years ago, the owner of Shinohara decided to retire, and instead of selling the business off, he retired and sold and closed the business down. And that kind of left Walthers standing there with no one to produce their track and their turnouts and the like. Fortunately, they didn't give up. They found someone and got them into production again. And finally, the double crossover is back in production. So I'm anxious to see what they've done, how they've improved it, made it more DCC friendly and more user friendly. Okay, so let's open it up and see what's inside. Okay, it's got this little plastic protective cover over the ends so that the ends won't get damaged. So that's a nice development. And we'll pull it on out here and take a look at it. Now, these are made out of nickel silver. They're comprised of 4 number 6 turnouts, and then that includes 4 frogs, as you can see here. So if you look here, you can see there's a fairly large frogs, and they're isolated. There's gaps here on each side of the frog, and here as well. So these are all to be powered. Now, these here are not. These are plastic castings so that you cannot power route these and provide power to them, nor these as well. But these are much, much smaller, whereas these are well over an inch long. So it's very important that these be powered when you're installing these on your layout, or you might see some of your locomotives stalling as they try to cross these. Let's see, what else can we see about these that might be different? Well, like I said, these are nickel silver. They are made to be DCC friendly. It appears that the frog itself is made up from individual pieces of rail. It doesn't look like that is a nickel silver casting or any kind of a metal casting. This is a plastic casting, but this looks like it's independent, that's independent, and the two parts of the frog are independent rails, it appears. So it looks like you've got several different pieces in here. Just running my finger across them, they're very smooth. There's no ridges or raised areas in here. So it looks like really good quality control in the production. Let's flip these over and take a look at the underside, and we'll see what they comprise of there. Now, one thing you'll notice right away, look at these strips of metal here. I don't know if those are brass or bronze or what. They're sort of a copper color. But at any rate, these are here to provide power between the various rails. So that all you have to, and there's a strip of them here, there's one here, a couple here, there, and there, all over. Very, very good as far as that goes. So what Walthers says in the instructions is, all you have to do is attach the ends of the double crossover to powered rails, and that will provide power to the entire crossover itself. Now, another thing that I want to point out that is really nice here, if you look here, in the old version of this, it was entirely up to you to figure out how to power these frogs. So on each one of these frogs, I had to solder a feeder to the backside of one of the rails that make up the frog, and that provided the power. But with these, what they've done is if you look right here, and I'll see if I can show you that, there's a little metal contact here. So all you have to do is attach a feeder wire right here to each one of there's 4 of these, one for each frog, and that will allow you to provide power to the frog itself. So that is a really nice development. It saves a lot of headache, because one of the problems with the old version that you could run into is because all of these pieces are individual pieces of rail, it was very easy to overheat the plastic that held them together and get them out of alignment. And you really had to jump through a lot of hoops to get those pieces of rails realigned if they got out of alignment. And you really need to do that, because otherwise you're going to get very rough running and derails of equipment going through there. That is not a problem with these. You don't need to solder anything directly to the frogs themselves. So how do you go about controlling these? Well, as you'll note, there are 4 sets of points on this, set here, here, down here, and here. You can see these, they click into place. So they have a little metal spring in here, just like on Pico and microengineering type turnouts, so that you can flip these with your finger and they will pop into final position. Walthers has provided the hole here in the throw bar for the wire to come up from a switch machine placed underneath of the layout. That could be one of the Walthers type switch machines, a tortoise switch machine, or one of the cobalt switch machines that I've shown you in the past. One thing they do tell you in the instructions, though, is if you look at the underside of the throw bar, you'll see that there's a little spring located here, and all you have to do, and they explain this in the instructions, just pop this little plastic cover off and remove that spring. And they tell you to do that if you're going to use a motorized control for these. It will greatly improve the life of both your switch machines as well as your turnouts if you remove those springs. Now, unlike on the earlier version, which basically was provided with very little instructions as far as how to install it and control it and power it, this is very complete. It has a lot of information in here on how to go about installing these, suggestions for other parts and supplies that you might need in order to do the job. And then on the back here, they have a nice diagram showing you how to use the Walthers switch machines to control these. And you'll note it takes 4 of these switch machines, 1 for each set of points, to control these. And also theirs, as well as the tortoise and the cobalt, can be used to provide the correct phase of power to your frogs. And I've shown in the past how to go ahead and provide the correct phase of power to your frogs using the independent switches in the switch machines. And all of these have, one way or another, have provisions for providing the correct phase of power to your frogs. Now, you notice I'm saying phase instead of polarity. And I don't want to get into a big discussion of that, but to be honest with you, for years we've been talking about the polarity of DCC, and that is basically technically incorrect, because with polarity you have plus or minus on the rails. With DCC, that's not the case. With DCC power, you have one rail powered and the other power is off. And then it switches and you have the other rail powered and the other one's off. And so that's why it's technically better to call this proper phase as opposed to the proper polarity. So from now on, I'm going to stop talking about polarity and talk about the phase of DCC power. Okay, but we're not going to get into a lot of that right now. So they give you instructions on how to set these up with the Walthers switch machine or with any of the other types of switch machines out there. And they also give you some tips on how to install these if they are split across 4 separate blocks. And they tell you where to cut gaps, that type of thing. In most installations, the entire turnout or the entire crossover is going to be located within the same block. So that's probably not something most modelers are going to have to worry about. Now, as far as operations though, you probably will have to, in most cases, use 4 separate switch machines to control the 4 sets of points here on the double crossover. It is possible to work these out using various ingenious designs, and I'll show you one in a minute, where I'm able to control the entire double crossover using 1 tortoise switch machine. But for most cases, you're either going to have to do it independently, or if you're good at cobbling up things, you can hook up linkages between 1 switch machine and this set of point and this set of points, and then one here for this set of points and this set of points. But it involves throw rods and all kinds of other crazy stuff. I don't know that I'm going to bother with doing that. What kind of places would you use these types of devices? Well, they're great in yard areas or passenger stations where you're going to be moving a lot of cars and locomotives around between different tracks. So you can run one across here, you can run them across this way. I'll show you an application here on the Piedmont Southern where I use it to bring a steam locomotive in off of the train heading towards Washington, D.C. and park it over here at the turntable, and then to bring out another set of diesels and back them up to the train. And then there's lots of other situations that I'm sure you can think of. Down the road, I'm going to be building another staging yard here on the layout. And with that one, I plan to use this particular one, this particular double crossover, because the tracks coming into the staging yard are double track, and I'll be able to route incoming trains to whichever of the yard tracks in the staging yard that I want to put them on. And then it also allows me to send trains back through a reverse loop as needed. So this is the kind of place where you would use it, and I'll be showing you an example of that in a minute. So let's go ahead. I think I've covered just about everything I can think of about these. We've talked about the points and the fact that they're sprung so that they click into place, the fact that the frogs can be individually powered using the contacts here that you can solder to, all 4 of these. So that's great. They're very smooth, very well built. And the fact that they have the bonding jumpers across the various tracks so that everything is powered. And also about removing the little spring here that holds the points in place. So I can't think of anything else to really talk to you about with this. Let's go ahead on over to the Piedmont Southern and Monroe Yard, and I'll show you how I installed one of these double crossovers there to handle the passenger trains going north and south through Monroe Yard. Now this is the older version of the Walthers double crossover. This was the DCC Friendly version that was produced for them by Shinohara. The main difference here is that the frogs, and these are the 4 powered frogs here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, they made no provisions whatsoever to power these. So this was DCC friendly construction. However, they did not make any provisions for the frogs themselves. They were isolated. You can see the isolating gaps here on each side of it. So each frog is isolated, but it is unpowered. So what I did was I just had to solder a feeder to the backside of each one of these frogs, and then it goes down to the double frog juicer below here that I'll show you in a minute, in order to provide the correct phase of power to the frogs as the locomotives run across it. So it switches instantaneously. It's on the order of microseconds that it switches, so it's, blindingly fast. This is the northbound main as it goes through the yard here at Monroe, and this is the bypass siding here. So a train can come in from the south and stop just before this double crossover. And I have one of the KD electromagnets located back here so that the locomotives, the steam locomotives coming north on the train, can disconnect from the train and go over to the bypass siding here and get out of the way. And then the switch can be thrown, and the diesels that will take the train the rest of the way to Washington, D.C. can then come out this way and back up and connect to the train, or you could have them sitting on the track in advance of the arrival of the train with the steam locomotive. But at any rate, that allows, this double crossover allows that type of operation where the steam locomotive can be taken off of the train and go on down to the turntable while the diesels come out this way and connect to the train to go on north. So that's one of the types of uses that you can use for this. I will be using another one of these in the approach to the yard throat on another staging yard. And so this will allow, and that will have a double track line going in and out of the staging yard. Having the double crossover will allow trains to go into the yard or bypass it and go on around to the reverse loop. So there's a lot of other different uses for double crossovers. And as I say, these are number 6 turnouts that make up the double crossover. Okay, I wanted to show you the underside of the layout here beneath the Walthers double crossover. And you can see this device, this machine that Don Carson built for me. And basically, it is just a beautiful example of machinist work. He used to do prototyping for developing equipment like this. And he has a metal shop at home now that he's retired. And he just voluntarily built this for me. Very nice of him. So what you can see here, there's this one tortoise switch machine right here, and that controls all 4 points on the double crossover. So I'm able to control all of the sets of points that are built into this, make up a double crossover, using one tortoise switch machine, because he developed this beautifully designed and machined piece of equipment. And right here, let's see, right here I have a dual frog juicer, and I use that to control the power going to the 4 frogs on the double crossover. So that allows it to be operated quite reliably and instantly change phase when a locomotive moves over those frogs. Does a great job in this type of situation. And I had to go that route because typically you would use the built-in switches on a switch machine to control each one of those frogs. However, because I was only using one tortoise, that would not work for me. So I had to come up with a different method. Now, since I'm not about to get another one of these built anytime in my lifetime, as far as I know, this is the only one of these that exists in the entire universe. So it's a real one-off as far as that goes. And I can't tell you what it would have cost to have this built at a machine shop. So please don't ask me where you can get one or how to build one, because it's just not something that's practical unless you're a machinist. But I just wanted to give you a look at this because it is such a beautiful piece of work that Don built for me. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the Walthers HO scale double crossover. I think they've done a great job on redesigning these, making them even easier to install and use, much more DCC friendly, or at least much more user friendly from the standpoint of the instructions that they provided. Because in the old instructions, like I said, there was just nothing. It was up to you to figure out how to power the frogs and the like. So take a look at these at your hobby shop or get one on order from your Walthers dealer. These sell for about $99.98. I picked this one up recently for $72. So if you shop around, you can find them on sale. That's it for today's video. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you here next week with another video from the DCC guy. Bye now.